Good evening. Welcome. This is the Marion City Council meeting for Thursday, September 6, 2018. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Mr. Draper, Ms. Etzel, Mr. Jensen,
Present.
Mayor Abu-Asli,
Here.
Ms. Gedalia,
Here.
Mr. Brandt,
Here.
Mr. Sternad.
Present.
Thank you. At this time, we have a moment of silence. Thank you. First on our agenda, we have two proclamations, and I will come down to the front. First one is for YMCA Appreciation Month. Is there anyone here from the Y to accept this? There, come on up here. What's that?
I'm right here with you.
Yes, sir. So this is Bob Carlson, who's the director of the YMCA. All right. So whereas the YMCA is the nation's leading nonprofit committed to strengthening communities through three areas of focus: youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. And whereas the YMCA of Cedar Rapids metropolitan area is volunteer-led and a powerful advocate of the needs of children, families, and individuals in our community, with over 500,000 people crossing their doors each year. And whereas the YMCA of the Cedar Rapids metropolitan area's YMCA Camp Wapsie serves over 7,000 individuals for retreats each year and 2,000 campers for resident and day camp each season. And whereas the YMCA of Cedar Rapids metropolitan area partners within our community, including collaborations with schools, government, faith-based organizations, businesses, charities, and other nonprofits to grow opportunities in our communities. And whereas the YMCA of the Greater Cedar Rapids metropolitan area is a leading voice on health and well-being with a mission centered on balance, bringing families closer together, encouraging good health, and fostering connections through fitness, sports, fun, and shared interests. And whereas the YMCA of the Cedar Rapids metropolitan area provides over $1 million in financial assistance to members of Marion to provide access to programs and services enriching health and well-being. And whereas the YMCA of the Cedar Rapids metropolitan area and YMCA Camp Wapsie are dedicated to improving Marion by engaging men, women, and children, regardless of age, income, or background, to nurture the potential of children and teens, improve the overall health and well-being, and provide opportunities to give back and support neighbors. Now, therefore, in recognition of more than 150 years of helping build a healthy Iowa and Marion, I, Nicholas Abu-Asli, Mayor of the City of Marion, Iowa, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2018 as YMCA of the Cedar Rapids metropolitan area and YMCA Camp Wapsie Appreciation Month, and call upon the community to join in celebration in honor of the YMCA of the Cedar Rapids metropolitan area and YMCA Camp Wapsie. Okay, our second proclamation is for Constitution Week. Whereas is there someone here to accept this? I didn't know that there was going to be someone, so. Okay, no one's here. All right. Whereas the tradition of celebrating the Constitution was started many years ago by the Daughters of the American Revolution, and whereas in 1955, the daughters petitioned the Congress to set aside September 17th through 23rd annually to be dedicated for the observance of Constitution Week, which was later adopted by the United States Congress and signed into public law on August 2nd, 1956, by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. And whereas the aims of the celebration are to emphasize citizens' responsibilities for protecting and defending the Constitution, preserving it for posterity, informing people that the Constitution is the basis for America's great heritage and the foundation for our way of life, and encouraging the study of the historical events which led to the framing of the Constitution in September 1787. And whereas the United States of America functions as a republic under the Constitution, which is the oldest document still in active use that outlines the self-government of a people. And whereas today the Constitution stands as an icon of freedom for people around the world. Now therefore, I, Nicholas Abu-Asili, Mayor of the City of Marion, Iowa, do hereby proclaim September 17th through 23rd, 2018 as Constitution Week in the City of Marion, Iowa, and encourage all citizens to take time this week to reflect on our heritage of freedom. Okay.
Ready?
Next on the agenda, we don't have any presentations scheduled this evening, so we move on to the consent agenda. We have a time for public comment on anything that is on the consent agenda, because typically the consent agenda items are not discussed individually, but are acted on as a group. So if there's anything on the consent agenda that anyone would like to address the council about, please come forward at this time. Okay, it looks like there's no one here to do that. So we will move on with the consent agenda.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda. This will include items A1 through F4 and resolutions 27110 through 27130.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented, including items A1 through F4, which include resolutions 27110 through 27130. Any discussion? Okay. Seeing that there's none, we'll vote. All those in favor of the consent agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say no. The motion has been approved. For the next section, I'll turn over the gavel to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. This, for now the consent agenda with Mayor Abu-Asili's abstention.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda with Mayor Abu-Asili's abstention from voting and discussion on the following items, including C1 through F2 and resolutions 27131 through 27137.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Will and a second by Randy. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Back to the regular agenda.
Your Honor, I would make a motion to receive and file a resignation letter from Kim Etzel from City Council effective September 30th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to receive and file a resignation letter from Kim Etzel from the City Council effective September 30th, 2018. Discussion.
My question would be to Lon. Could you outline the steps that we need to consider? I've never been involved in this aspect before. Could you outline the steps to consider or take place after this date?
Yeah, there's two ways to fill a vacancy on the city council. The council can do it via appointment, or you can do it via special election. The council has, from the date of the election, or the date of the vacancy in office, I believe 40 days to make that selection. And then there's another process where if you announce your intent to appoint, there's, I think, 14 days for a petition opportunity for the public to request a special election, and then you just proceed knowing which way the council's going to proceed to fill the seat.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional discussion or questions?
I would just like to add or point out to thank Kim for her service. And although I only got to work in this capacity with her up here, having attended meetings since I've lived here, she's been a presence on the council and she'll be missed.
Yeah, I was going to also thank her for her 7 years of service on city council. So
Yeah.
sad to see that on here, but
Yeah, Kim has been a very good member of the city council and a positive representative of the city, and a great supporter of all the great things that have been happening in the city. So we will miss her, but we understand the position that she's in with her new job, and wish her well and thank her very much for her service. So. Okay, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion to receive and file the letter from Kim Etzel, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved.
Next, I make a motion to approve resolution number 27138, approving the purchase agreement of 5.68 acres of property from the Kurt Robinson Gill Revocable Trust and the Barbara K. Gill Revocable Trust in the amount of $989,683.20.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27138, approving the purchase agreement of 5.68 acres of property from the Kurt Robinson Gill Revocable Trust and the Barbara K. Gill Revocable Trust in the amount of $989,683.20. Discussion. No discussion? Okay. All those in favor of resolution number 27138, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved.
Your Honor, I move resolution number 27139, setting a public hearing for September 20th of 2018 regarding establishing access fees on 2184 Echo Hill Road related to Echo Ridge Estates.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27139, setting a public hearing for September 20th, 2018 regarding establishing access fees for 2184 Echo Hill Road related to Echo Ridge Estates. Discussion. Okay, all those in favor of resolution number 27139 say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 27140, setting a public hearing for September 20th, 2018 regarding establishing access fees on 35th Avenue related to Briargate 6th Edition.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27140, setting a public hearing for September 20th, 2018 regarding establishing access fees on 35th Avenue related to Briargate 6th Edition. Discussion. All those in favor of resolution number 27140, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved.
Your Honor, this will be a motion to approve ordinance number 18-23, amending Chapter 100A of the Code of Ordinances regarding amendment of access fee for ordinance number 13-03, 100A.05, Tower Terrace Road District. This will be initial consideration.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 18-23, amending Chapter 100A of the Code of Ordinances regarding amendment of access fees for the Tower Terrace Road District, ordinance number 13-03. This is initial consideration. Discussion? All those in favor of ordinance number 18-23, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Okay, the motion is approved. At this time, we have a public hearing regarding the property between Albernet Road and Irish Drive, north and south of Tower Terrace Road. Public hearing is for amending the future land use map of the Marion Comprehensive Plan from single-family attached residential to single-family detached residential and commercial, and single-family detached residential to commercial, and a request to rezone from rural A1 to medium-density single-family residential R2 and general commercial C3, and rural restricted A1 to office transitional O1 district. At this time, the public hearing is now open, and do we have a presentation? Yep.
Good evening, Council. As indicated by the Mayor, the public hearing tonight is for related to two items. One is a resolution approving the comprehensive plan amendment to for the city, and then also a rezoning request and rezoning a parcel of ground or two parcels of ground to three different zoning district classifications. Just for reference, the property under consideration indicated here, you have Tower Terrace Road, Albernet. The area outlined in the dashed red line is the area that's being considered as a part of this. The primary area for the rezoning would be it's north of the section line, so there's a very small piece, as I'll show in a minute. The section, the larger portion of the property is owned by the Gill family trust, I believe, and then the small parcel here that's outset is a individual home owned by the Green, and I forget his first name, but Mr. Green owns that property. So there's two petitioners on the request for both the comprehensive land use plan amendment and the rezonings as proposed. As indicated, the comprehensive plan shows a commercial node at the corner of Albernet Road and Tower Terrace, and then also commercial around the intersection of Irish Drive and Tower Terrace. The proposal is to bring it in line with the proposed rezoning request, which extends the commercial to Irish on the north side of the property. Understanding that it's a 4-lane divided roadway, staff's recommendation to proceed with the commercial designation in this area and amend the comprehensive plan was relayed to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission reviewed this at their meeting a couple weeks ago, and they concurred with the staff recommendation, and it's being brought forward to the council in a positive motion. So moving from the comprehensive plan to the zoning, the current zoning in the area, primarily A1. As you can see, there's some O1 to the south of the A1. It's difficult to understand here without seeing it, but the Tower Terrace Road kind of runs just north of this line. So,
Tom, excuse me. When you refer to the A1 and O1, would you mind just using the full description of what that is, just for the benefit of people who are listening?
Absolutely. The A1 district is a rural restricted district. And this is primarily the holding zone for ag land that's brought into the city upon annexation. So farm fields that are generally annexed, and prior to development, when they're annexed, they have to hold a zoning district classification. So the most restrictive district is the A1. It limits almost all uses except for some single-family large lot development. So that's kind of our holding district. The O one is an office transitional district, and it provides for some office uses, personal service uses, and then some light retail. You can see the O1 in this area. There's a neighborhood off of in this area. You can see that there's some O1 lots that are single-family residential lots, and it's just when the property was zoned out there to the R2 and the O1 district, Tower Terrace Road had a different alignment. That O1 has a number of conditions applied to it. The lots are all developed residentially, where it's in the yellow, the R2, which is single-family residential, and these two lots have homes on them currently. So as this property was brought forward for the rezoning request, understanding that we're going to have to do some cleanup in the area, this is really what's being proposed for the rezoning from a legal description perspective and land development. You have the small slice of property south of Tower Terrace Front is going to the O1, which again is the light retail, primarily office district. The C3 district, which would allow box retail as well as personal service retail, office, and a general commercial district allows most retail uses per se. The R2 medium density residential to the north, the yellow area, that would be single family residential. Most of the community developed single family as single family homes is the R2 zoning district classification. So the zoning that's proposed is as identified. One thing that I think helps as you review a proposal like this is to understand that we've requested additional information as a part of the project, which includes kind of a layout for the preliminary plat. In your packet, while it's not on the agenda, you received information related to the preliminary plat of the property, which I think helps property owners and adjacent folks that live in the area understand kind of what's being proposed in the area. So I'm just going to illustrate that in general terms here. So you can see that the subdivision, single-family homes are being proposed on the north side of the property. The commercial, the east side between Irish and about halfway to Alburnett is the proposed location for the YMCA. That's what's primarily driving the whole rezoning process that we're in. The property owner, the primary property owner, Mr. Gill, has been working with the YMCA and desires to sell the ground for the new construction of that. The YMCA does require a commercial designation from a zoning perspective, so the property needed to be rezoned. It's my understanding that the remaining commercial piece is not intended to be developed anytime soon. That doesn't mean that a month from now someone could make him an offer and we'll be right back here talking about it, but the indication at this point is that that property would not be developed in the short term.
Is that property still with Mr. Gill then, right? Only the portion for the YMCA has been sold, but we're still rezoning the whole thing?
Correct. Okay. Yep. And that's something that we would like to see done so that the zoning is in place. I think if there's folks in the audience, one of the things that's difficult when you move into an area and it's not zoned, but the comprehensive plan may identify it as commercial, there's some confusion when they see the zoning and then they maybe not take a look at the comp plan that shows the future land use of that area to be commercially designated. The zoning just sometimes doesn't reflect that until the property owner brings it forward. So it's nice to have that being held in that manner so it's a known fact to the public and those moving into the area. And then the O1 down below in the bluish, you can see there's some build out. It's all conceptual. Just trying to show how that property could develop. It just paints a good picture for how it could come forward. It's showing some buildings that are to the back of the properties so that the parking would be up front and kind of shield the existing neighbors from parking lots and maybe some of the noise associated with that. But it could develop completely different.
And how much of that is, I know we're rezoning to get ahead of it and to be transparent, how much of that is still with Mr. Gill?
So it's a very thin piece. It's just the front half. The other is, Mr. Gill owns, I'm sorry, Mr. Gill owns all of the property, but the property that's being rezoned is just it's probably 30 or 40 feet on the north side. We're just trying to bring it all under one. We don't like to have split parcel zoning. You'll probably hear about this. We're going to try and clean up those last two lots, get them rezoned R2. We'll probably do a map interpretation, or we may just bring forward a rezoning situation so it's just a cleaner mapping exercise. As the council also knows, the fire station, we're working with Mr. Gill on the acquisition of property for a fire station to be located in this vicinity here. So the two pieces that will be likely developed in the very near future would be the YMCA on the north side, which is approximately from here to Irish Drive, and then the fire station on the south side. So there were a number of conditions attached to the C3 district. As the council's aware, and I'm thinking that most in the audience from this neighborhood have been through rezonings out here a number of times, know our C3 district is antiquated and allows for a number of uses that would not be fitting for the neighborhood out here. And so we did go through the ordinance and kind of strike the ones that were not would not be acceptable as a residential neighbor. And so we did identify those in the ordinance. But really what we're looking at is the primary uses in that C3 are going to be retail and personal services and office. We've excluded any outside sales of materials, so you're not going to have your car lots or implement dealers or any of those types of uses. So it should be a very clean commercial corridor out there. I don't know if there was any questions from a staff perspective on the proposed rezoning.
Well, does that come later, or do we finish the public hearing first? Or
However you'd like to proceed.
Is that correct?
Yeah, after the staff report, proceed with the hearing, and then
Yeah.
when the ordinance would be introduced, discuss it.
Would this illustration be fine for the council?
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
All right. At this time, we'll open it for comments from members of the public. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this measure? Please come forward. And we ask that you fill out, we have a yellow card that where you fill out your name and address. And then also, when you come to the podium, state your name and address. Everyone is welcome to give their comments. We just ask that you be mindful, of keeping it concise and not repeat something that other people have already said. Okay. Anyone here to speak in favor of this rezoning? Well, it's rezoning and the comprehensive plan amendment. So, and this public hearing is not for any specific project for the site. It's strictly amending the comprehensive plan and rezoning the property. Anyone here to speak in favor? Okay. Anyone here to speak in opposition? Please come forward. Okay. Seeing that there is none, we will close the public hearing. Was there someone to speak? Oh, sorry. I thought I saw you move. Okay. If you can state your name and address, and then maybe when you're finished, fill out the card.
My name's Aaron Finch. We live in the Aspen Ridge Homeowners Association on the opposite side of the road. There's been some questions. I live at 533 Eastview. Sorry, I'll add that too. There's been some questions. We have 2 detention ponds behind our house. Is there the way the fields are now, the water from basically the whole red and yellow zone that you guys are going to rezone, are you guys going to do anything with detention ponds on there that it's not going to overflow? Because right now, currently, it goes into our ponds.
So I think Development Director can answer that, Tom, or,
I don't know if you want to answer that now, or I'll ask a couple other questions.
yeah, hold on.
So as the property is platted for development, this is showing the general layout of the preliminary plat. If you notice on the northwest corner of Irish Drive and Tower Terrace, there's a little bit of a knockout there. There'll be detention there as a part of the project. And then through the development process, there's a requirement that they retain the water that would flow from the property for a period of time and allow it to release slowly so that it doesn't have an impact to the adjacent property owners. And we do a pretty in-depth stormwater calculation process to ensure that occurs. So.
Okay. And then it has also been brought up as with the development of the YMCA, are you guys going to do like headlight screening going up Irish Drive? There's been a huge, I wouldn't say huge, but there's been a concern of light pollution with the lights around the YMCA, the parking lot, and that sort of stuff.
So, again, this public hearing is for the rezoning, but
Okay.
I think it's a legitimate question as to whatever type of commercial development might come on this property. I mean, the YMCA could happen or may not happen. I mean, we don't know. But I think that Tom could answer that from that perspective of what are the standards with commercial development, right, in terms of lighting and adjacent neighborhoods?
Correct. So the lighting as a part of the lighting as a part of any project is required to be downcast in nature, and it can't have bright bulbs shining in and off into the distance. I would take a look at the ESCO building and how they've lit that building, and it's downcast or upcast, and it's not a direct line of sight lighting situation. So that would be addressed with the development. Now, that's not to say that if there's a parking lot and there's lighting, that's going to have a visual impact from the perspective it's going to be a lit parking lot, and that's there's not much we can do about that. And from a commercial zoning perspective, I don't know that there's much that we would intend to block that. But just understand that there's the desire is that there's shielding those lights to be directed to the parking areas and not to adjacent property owners.
Well, once he's finished, you're welcome to come up and speak. Thanks.
That's all I have.
Oh, but sir, ma'am, you have to come to the podium because this meeting is recorded. So if you have a question, please come forward and just state your name and address. You're welcome to state your point.
My name is Sarah Finch. I live at 533 Eastview. I was just going to ask as a follow-up to that, realizing that we're not sure that the YMCA would necessarily be what would go there, but with the same regard to the lighting pollution, with the sports fields and things of that nature, with the lighting of those, I'm assuming there would be baseball diamonds or some athletic capacity to the exterior of those buildings.
You're talking about the sports fields that are designated up there?
Right.
I don't know if those are lit or not, or if that would be the plan. But
I honestly, we haven't reviewed the site plan to understand whether those would be lit. I'm going to venture to guess that they won't be, and I'm sure there's someone in the audience that could probably tell us really quickly that they're not going to be lit. Yeah, I didn't think that they would be. So the fields would not be lit, but so they would be open play fields though. And then again, the parking lot lighting would be, I think the primary concern in this situation would be parking lot lighting.
That was all.
Okay, would you mind filling out the cards?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak on this matter, whether it's in opposition or if you have a question or whatever it is? Sir, come forward, please, and then state your name and address and Please fill out the card afterwards.
Yep,
Thank you.
I'm Mike Skoglund. I'm over on 152 Aspen Drive. My question is just from a traffic perspective. Right now, Irish Drive from Tower Terrace leads up to Lau Park, which is going to be a nice playground area for the kids and everything else. And what sort of what more traffic we're going to actually get up that road when we put in a more commercial area in there. And then also, and I'm not sure, I know you talked about some of the stuff that you've actually left out in that commercial and retail and whatnot. What are the hours that can actually stay open in that development in the commercial side of things too?
So there are no limitations on the hours of operation. There were some east of here. It's the only area in town really where there are hours of operation limitations. The traffic on Irish Drive was built to provide, built as a collector, so it's a wider street, limited access. That's why there's trails on one side of it that lead to the park. So it was designed in that manner to carry pretty heavy traffic up to Lau Park for events associated with the park. We just understood that when it was built and platted that way. I would say that prior to the Y locating here, it was always thought that access to the commercial area would also be off of Irish Drive. The way that the project is coming together at this point, though, there is limited access to the commercial area, except for through the parking lot if the project goes as identified to Irish. So the only access up there is going to be to Lau Park, to the neighborhood, and then associated with the Y. If you notice, the preliminary plat is showing that the access to the commercial would be off a right-in, right-out street off Tower Terrace Road on the south leg. And then as you go west, it would access to Albernet Road. So actually, from the perspective of how we always thought the property would develop, there'd be a lot less traffic to the area, I would imagine.
Assuming that takes place, I'm more so assuming that none of this is true, right? Because we're actually just saying, just making it commercial, so I'm taking the YMCA out. So if it does, there's a lot of kids in the neighborhoods north of us and to the west of us as well. So when you start getting more and more traffic in there, is just my concern is really what I have. So.
Would there be sidewalk on the west side of Irish, Tom?
Yes.
Thanks.
Is that a trail or just sidewalk?
I think we did trail on one side, sidewalk on the other. I don't recall right offhand.
Anyone else to address the council on this issue? You're welcome to come back up. Please state your name again.
Oh, sorry.
Again,
Sarah
for the
Finch.
recording. Yeah.
What was that?
For the purpose of the recording.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sarah Finch, 533 Eastview. With the development and potential for open commercial businesses, including what I would assume could be bar restaurant, and there not being an established closure time on the operation of business, and I apologize because we were late, but was there anything discussed about the noise ordinance or a time frame for that? I know that was something that was brought up with the previous commercial development on the other side about the timing for which you would be able to have maybe outdoor music or a band or something of that nature. Anything? Have there been any parameters put around that?
Well, as the council recently heard and recommended approval of the commercial zoning just east of here, which would be east of that intersection of Irish and Tower Terrace, and south, really the commercial area, which would be north of Esco, where there's some grading being accomplished out there. That also has no limitations in hours of operation, and primarily for restaurant type uses. We do have a noise ordinance that is in effect, so there are parameters. There's not the ability to have live music and a loud band on a weekend night out on a patio. There's limitations to the amount of noise that can come off of that site, regardless of what the use is. The hours of operation are not limited out here. especially at this location. There's never been the idea to do that. It's the corner of two major arterials, so I know it's hard to imagine, but when Tower Terrace Road opens to C Avenue, I think you're going to see about a doubling of the traffic volume. We just had traffic counts released. I think there's only about 3,000 cars a day previously on Tower Terrace Road. Tim, did you get this?
It was like 2,200 cars a day between Albernet Road and 10th right now, which isn't a lot.
Yeah.
So, but you'll see, like Tom said, once we get C Avenue built, Tower Terrace built to C Avenue, you'll see that pick up as it becomes more of a commuter route.
When the 2013 numbers were out, the new numbers have just been released, so I apologize for not having them. But like East Robbins Road, for instance, has about 9,000 cars a day on it. That was 2013. I'm going to imagine that that's bumped up substantially. So you can imagine what's going to happen when Tower Terrace Road between C and Albernet is connected. That arterial is going to function more about the way that it was intended to be. I'm going to imagine when it opens, we're going to have 10 to 12,000 cars a day on that road. So it's going to be much busier than it is now, and we've accommodated this commercial node. It's kind of been planned out there for many years, identified in our comp plan for this intersection to have that commercial, that community commercial development to support the residents around there. Currently, there's just no commercial in the vicinity. As many people out in that neighborhood know, it's to get a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk, you've got to go a substantial distance. So we've been planning for the commercial to be out there, and this is the location. So I think I went around about that a little bit, but I want to provide a little more context to the whys. There's no limitations on that.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add, with regard to the concerns about the noise levels, the city noise ordinance will apply to that. And so for a commercial district, that's 65. For residential, it's 60 during the day, 50 at night. And so to have a loud band outside would not be an option. Additionally, I know that there's some concern about the sale of alcohol in some of those commercial districts. There are state-imposed regulations on that, and there are city limitations as far as when minors can be in those establishments, even if I know there's been some talk about how that would be affected up there. But those are limitations that aren't involved in zoning. So this is the zoning changes, but as far as those other issues come up, those are in separate portions of the ordinance, so you won't find those listed out in this ordinance.
Okay.
Cocktails is technically in Marion, correct?
That's correct.
So how is it that they're able to do exactly that?
Cocktails has previously gotten an establishment can apply for a hold harmless, and Cocktails does not always follow the rules.
Okay.
That's been an issue. And so if there would be a loud concert or party in your neighborhood, call the PD.
I mean, we can hear Cocktails outdoor bands from our...
They are certainly above 65
right.
then.
Just wanted to clarify why that was allowed.
And I think it's a good point to understand that you can apply for the hold harmless. The council approves any number of hold harmlesses throughout the city, whether it's a graduation party, whether it's a block party, or we have neighborhoods that have bands in their backyard, and they apply for a hold harmless. But even with that hold harmless, the limitation on the decibel levels are identified, and if they are violated and we get complaints, then they can be shut down for that as well. So, and that may have happened at Cocktails a couple times.
Anyone else to address the council on this issue? Okay. I think everyone who wanted to address the council has, so we'll close the public hearing. Public hearing is now closed.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 27141, approving an amendment to the future land use map of the Marion Comprehensive Plan from single-family attached residential to single-family detached residential and commercial, and single-family detached residential to commercial for property between Alburnett Road and Irish Drive, north of Tower Terrace Drive, and this is brought by Gil Green.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27141, approving an amendment to the future land use map of the Marion Comprehensive Plan from single-family attached residential to single-family detached residential and commercial and single-family detached residential to commercial for the property between Alburnett Road and Irish Drive, north of Tower Terrace Road. Discussion.
I'm happy to see that even though we don't know exactly what's going to come in, that we are getting ahead of the zoning for transparency purposes, like Tom stated. So while we need to zone portions of it, it just makes sense to go ahead and continue to align it to what's been outlined in the comp plan for years. It's less checking of various places that people need to do to see what's coming.
Your Honor.
Further discussion? Sir.
Can I just make one?
Yes.
One thing I would like to note is that, so there's 3 readings of the ordinance. So this ordinance will be read for 2 additional two more council meetings. The final reading is proposed to be on the 20th of this month. So if there are concerns from the public, they can certainly bring those forwards or provide written comments to the council. The public hearing, I'm assuming, is going to be closed this evening, but certainly if there's questions or comments by the public, they can contact the planning department. We'd be happy to work through any questions that they have, including the folks that are in the audience tonight. The other item that I wanted to bring forward is that the preliminary plat would be approved at the final reading because they've submitted it. The preliminary plat we will talk through at that meeting, and it'll have a lot of the concerns that were stated referencing stormwater would be highlighted in a more detailed manner. I know the Brent Jackman with the engineer on the project is here this evening, and I noticed he was jumping up and down a little bit when we were talking about stormwater, so I don't know if there's folks that have those concerns. They could probably find him after the meeting, and if they don't plan to be here on September 20th to talk through that stormwater. So that once the preliminary plat is approved, if it does move forward at that 20th meeting, final plats would come through for development, and in those instances, it would be brought back to the city council. So you'll see some of these projects as they move forward from a platting perspective, not project by project, but from a platting perspective. So.
And it's during that process that you talk about, you said the lighting,
correct.
Any kind of screening,
yep.
landscaping, those kinds of things.
Yep. So.
Okay, other discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor of resolution number 27141, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved.
Your Honor, I move to approve ordinance number 18-24, approving a rezoning from rural restricted A1 to medium-density single-family residential R2 and general commercial C3, and rural restricted A1 to office transitional O1 for property between Alburnett Road and Irish Drive, north of Tower Terrace Road. This is Gill and Green, initial consideration.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 18-24, approving a rezoning from rural restricted to medium-density single-family residential R2 and general commercial C3 and rural restricted A1 to office transitional for property between Alburnett Road and Irish Drive, north of Tower Terrace Road. And technically, it's a little bit below Tower Terrace Road, that sliver. Okay. That's the O1, right? Okay. Discussion. None? All those in favor of ordinance number 18-24, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved. At this time, we have another public hearing regarding revising Chapter 176 of the Marion zoning ordinance for approval of an amendment to Chapter 176.32 of the Marion Code of Ordinances regarding accessory structure size. The public hearing is now open. Just a brief recap of what that's all about.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd asked, on Tuesday there was, at the work session, I presented a little bit of the information on it. Dave is actually the draftsman of the ordinance, and I think I may have provided some confusion on it. So I've asked Dave to be here tonight to present, which I probably should have done on Tuesday, admittedly. Dave's going to provide a little background on it and some information for the council. I would just point out, and I said this on Tuesday, and I'll repeat it, that this was a request that was brought forward to the city council. The city council identified a desire for us to take a look at the ordinance, and we're providing information back. There's no expediency required. This is at the discretion of the council. If there is a desire to leave this open for a longer period of time for review, that's certainly something the council can do if you want additional feedback. I do believe that there's folks in the audience that want to speak to the issue this evening, but I just want to let the council know that there's nothing that's pushing this from a staff perspective to get anything accomplished. So with that, I'd just ask Dave to do a little due diligence on it for you.
I'm just going to go over the specifics of the ordinance. If there's questions, just please stop me as I'm talking and I can delve into it a little bit. And I'm going to show a few examples and then run a few scenarios by so everybody understands what the impact of the amendment creates. What I have on the screen should be in your packet. This is the accessory structures ordinance of the code. All the changes are highlighted in red, and again, they're in your packet as well if you can't see overhead very well. This will apply basically to all garages in our, I call it our single-family neighborhoods, our R2. Oh, sure. R2, R3, R4 zoning districts. It does not apply to the multifamily districts, the R5, R6, where you have large garages associated with apartments. Again, this came about really in response to a very large garage in a neighborhood. And so what I've done is I've looked at all the other area communities and didn't want to create an ordinance that's so unique it creates confusion between the two districts, because the guys that build garages here, they build them in Cedar Rapids. I'm trying to create an ordinance that kind of fits the metro area. So I looked at Cedar Rapids, Hiawatha, Robbins, down in Iowa City, up in Waterloo, and they all had kind of a reoccurring theme about 900 square feet is the maximum a garage allowed that any person can have, as long as your lot can accommodate all the required setbacks and easements, etc. So if you have a small lot, you might only get a single stall. But if you have a larger lot, the maximum you can get is 900 square feet, which is a 30 by 30. So that's a very generous 2-stall. It could even be a long 3-stall garage for detached. So it's a good size garage that you're allowed to have if your lot supports it. Now, most of the codes I looked at, they all created exceptions for the guy that has half-acre, 2-acre lots in town. And this is the similar code I presented about 10 years ago that didn't go past the council at that time. It does create some exceptions, and I do want to go over those exceptions. If your property is zoned A1, again, that's rural restricted. You may build a large equipment shed for true ag equipment. Yes, there are some properties in town that are zoned A1 that are in town. With our new zoning code update or new zoning map update that's coming soon, we'll correct all those old districts and make them residential. But this still allows for, if I'm a farmer with 40 acres in town, it still allows me to build a machine shed and run my farm operation from my property. It also allows, if you have a larger lot in town, it still allows you to build a big garage beyond 900 square feet, but it forces you to design a garage that fits the neighborhood. So the exceptions, if you want to go over 900 square feet, and these are what I want to talk about, is that number one, the height of the garage shall not exceed the height of your principal structure, your home on the lot. So if you have a 2-story home, you get to mass up your garage to a higher height. If you only have a ranch, you're capped at more of a traditional height garage. So let's try to put it into scale of your property. not necessarily the neighbor's, your neighbor's property, but your property. Number two, if you want to go bigger, and you have to meet all these conditions, not just meet one. You have to meet them all. The second one has to be constructed of a similar material and a color of your primary structure. So this avoid, if you have a traditional, I'm going to call it one of the 100 shades of beige in Marion, and you build a big red barn, but if you make it beige to match your house, then you can go up larger, again, along with the height. Lost it. Number three, it prevents forward-facing doors. So, it doesn't prevent you from having doors on the backside, but again, if you have a hard surface, it gets difficult to do that. So, it limits the number of doors you can have facing the street. I'm not differentiating between a single door versus a double door. That's one door. So you may have 3 double doors, or you got 3 single doors, or any combination thereof. So it just limits you to 3 vehicle access doors, not a pedestrian door. And when I say garage door, I know I'm gonna have somebody come in here and say, well, I want to do a French door or a traditional French door or a sliding door, as opposed to a traditional garage door. I always tell people, if I can fit my Ford Taurus through the door, it's a garage. That's what I've always said. And so if I can get a car in there, it's a garage, and it would have to meet the hard surface, and it does count towards your total of the garage doors. The final item, number 4, that the accessory structure must meet the setbacks of the primary structure. When you build a garage or a big shed today, you can be within 3 feet of the property line, which is, even for a small garage, that can feel pretty close to a neighbor's house or a neighbor's property. So if you want to build a big garage, you have to be at least 7 feet or 10 feet, depending on your zoning, from the side property line. And then you have to be at least anywhere from 20 to 25 feet back from your rear property line. So it pushes it much more up onto your property and gets away from the neighbors. So if you do have that 2-story house and you could have a taller garage, it would require it to be pushed further in to lessen the impact. So with a big garage, if you want to go over 900 square feet, you got 4 conditions to meet. They're not impossible conditions, but the way they're designed, most average size lots in town won't get much over 900 square feet allowed anyways. It still allows the guy with 1 acre, 2 acres to build a significant structure, but again, they have to make it blend to the neighborhood.
Can you mention the setbacks again? So it's
correct, yeah. So today, when you have a garage, you can be 3 feet from any property line as a right. With this, if you want to go bigger than and you can do that if you have a 900 square foot garage or smaller. Absolutely no problem. But if you want to go over 900 square feet, you have to be 7 or 10 on the side, depending on the zoning district. And you have to be anywhere from 20 to 25, depending on your zoning, from the rear property line. So it creates that, it's pushing that bigger structure further into your lot and away from the property lines. Okay.
And Dave, you said this is generally in keeping with what's going on in the areas around us.
I looked at all of them, and I think they've all stolen from somebody else originally. And I tried to keep those exceptions, try to simplify them a little bit more than what some of the other communities have, but again, keeping the nature of that 900 square foot garage. Going to do a couple quick examples here in town, and I'll start here. This is a 2,000 square foot garage. It's highlighted in blue. Belongs to this house. It's in I think a very traditional, pretty run-of-the-mill neighborhood in Marion. This is what a 2,000 square foot garage looks like on your typical Marion street. It's very forward on the property. This one's got high one. This is a very high garage. It's not RV high, but it does accommodate storage. It may or may not have a business running out of it someday. The first guy is usually pretty good about it. It's the second, third owner, when they see these garages, they think, oh, I want to run a business out of it, and that's when, unfortunately, I have to get involved and kick them out. So, again, I'm trying to show examples of scale here. Again, that's a 2,000 square foot garage. This is a 2,500 square foot garage. in an old part of town, and it, again, it's highlighted in red. And it belongs to this house, so you can see it's significantly larger than anything else in that neighborhood. So.
So under the current rules, Dave.
I'm sorry?
Under the proposed guidelines, would either one of those be allowed?
No. They're both getting close in terms of,
Do we need to save this till after the public hearing, or, I don't, or no? We can ask questions?
It's still part of the staff report at this point,
Okay,
so
go
if you have
ahead.
clarifying questions on the staff
He did.
report, that's
He
right.
answered my question already.
no, they could not, because they don't meet all the conditions I've laid out, but they are getting, they do have the matching color, so they are starting to get there. The heights are a little high, though. This is a 3,000 square foot garage belonging to this house here, and you can see it's a. I didn't do this garage justice when I took the picture, because the other side, it does have shutters and windows that match the house. It does have the brick ledger. The vinyl matches, but it's a very tall garage, and this is belonging to a traditional ranch house in Marion, but a very large 3,000 square foot structure.
That's taller than the house, right? It's hard to tell from
Significantly.
this
Yeah,
angle.
it's hard to tell, but yeah, it's
But it
significantly
is.
higher. This one's not quite. This one's getting close to being legal. Not quite. It needs to be set back a little bit more. But here's a garage associated with this older home in the back. It is. Oh, I didn't write it down. I think it was about 2,800 square foot garage. But again, if this garage had if it was set back a little bit further from this side property line, it'd be perfectly legal on this lot, which is it's an old double lot. It's a very big garage. But if you had moved it back about 10 more feet on this north property line, it could have been built. The colors matched. The windows on the other side have shutters to match the house. The height is fine. It's just a little off in the setback. So again, I'm trying to illustrate you can definitely build a big garage on your property if you have the land and you do some of the design exceptions. This is a good example of a garage I think was almost met the code.
So it was just the setback to the rear of the property?
Yeah.
It needs to be 25 feet.
Yeah. He would have to get a little smaller because he would have gotten to the house, but I think this is one that got close to meeting all the conditions.
But today it would be 3 feet.
Today it'd be at 3 feet, yeah. And then, an example of what we see in Marion, and this is what, Gary's guys approve these all day long in the building department. This is about 25 by 25, 24 by 24 foot garage. So it's right around 660 square feet. It's a nice, generous 2-stall. A 3-stall would fit, 900 square feet would fit on this lot just fine for a 3-stall or a big 2-stall. So again, this is a very traditional McGowan type lot that we see the majority of detached garages being built on. So just want to give you an example. This is what gets approved every day, all year long for garage permits. And it's a nice sized garage, and it could go bigger. The code does not prevent this at all. And this is what 95% of the permits are looking like. So. And I keep talking about garages, but this could be a big shed. It could be a work. It could be when I say accessory structure, it's sheds, garages, studios, whatever. As long as it's a structure not attached to the house.
But it couldn't be a dwelling.
It cannot be a dwelling, correct? It could be almost anything but a dwelling. So again, the ordinance, like I said, it mirrors the Metro Code's requirements. It does create exceptions. I want to use the Anderson garage as an example as my final example because that's what kind of prompted this discussion. Could he build that garage as he did with the code? That garage he's about 200 square feet too big with not meeting all the conditions. But if he would have brought it down, sided it similar to his house, reduced the number of garage doors, and then moved the setbacks a little bit more. Actually, I think he met the setbacks. So if he could have done a few things, he could have built that garage as it lays today. Now, if it's not red, if it's not as tall as it is, it would still be a very prominent structure, but I don't think it would be as noticeable. by most people. And again, if it's in your backyard, I think you'd still notice the structure there. But there could have been ways to minimize its impact on the neighborhood, and the code would allow him to do that if he met all those exceptions. Finally, the 900 square feet, no limit to height still. That does allow RV storage. It does allow you to get a car lift in there if you like to tinker on your cars. So it does not prevent somebody from wanting to do that. It just caps you at 900 square feet. So.
Okay.
I know there are several folks here that do want to talk on this as well.
So, and if there's more questions when we get to the actual vote, then we can ask those questions too. At this time, we'll continue with the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this measure? Sir, please come forward and state your name and address, and if you wouldn't mind filling out the card afterwards, it'd be appreciated.
Name is Jim Brooks, 2775 Highland Drive. He mentioned Anderson. Anderson's my pet peeve. That thing he put back here should not have been anywhere near what it is. Now, I don't know how he did it. I mean, it was explained to me how he did it, but it was not right. That thing is close to 4,000 square feet of garage. He's going to pave the driveway, which he has to do, I understand. There's going to be about another 4,000 square feet of driveway paved. That's about 8,000 square feet of runoff. How does he get away with that? No retention pond. Nobody so far, I guess, has complained. Now, I do have another complaint. He has race cars with no mufflers. Now, how does he get away with that? He starts them up. He doesn't necessarily run them for 15 minutes, but he starts them up, he loads them up, and he pulls them in and out. Now, that there is not right. He had a ladder fire truck.
Fire truck?
Yes, sir, a ladder fire truck. He had. I understand he sold it last week. He had started firing up. He'd set that thing up there and raise the ladder, extend it, played around with it like a little kid. He ran it in and out, ran it around the neighborhood, had to show it off. I mean, this man should, well, he's my pet peeve. First thing he did when he came over to my house, he introduced himself. And my first thing I said to him is, I'm one pissed off neighbor. And I'm still pissed off. I'm pissed off at the council. I'm pissed off at everybody. I'm one pissed off voter.
Thank you. Anyone else here to address the council on this matter? Oh, ma'am, you have to come to the microphone. Thank you. No.
Before it was built. And my name is Susan Foster. I live at 2745 Highland Drive. And I probably wouldn't have been quite as forceful as Jim was, but I understand his position. My bedroom window is less than 20 feet, and this man is like a big man baby. He starts his toys up, doesn't matter what time of the day or night. I got to the point where I was going to call the police about the fire engine. It was ridiculous. I don't know why he sold it, but I'm glad it's gone. But that doesn't make all the rest of those cars gone. And because he was allowed to build that structure so large, do you have any idea how many cars are in there? Because none of them have mufflers. And it's 9:30 at night, or it's 1 o'clock on a holiday weekend, and I have family in from everywhere, and we can't even sit down to eat a holiday dinner because he's playing with his toys. I was assured when I came. I was so upset when I saw this. And I think one of these gentlemen that sat on this told me, oh, I know this guy. He's such a great guy. It's just a few cars. It won't be a problem. Really. Besides the fact that it has lowered my property value, I get water from his property now into my backyard that's rather like a swamp. I have to put up with his arrogance and his inconsideration. 6:30 Sunday morning, he has a John Deere tractor mowing the grass. I mean, what grass you got left, dude? You put a big building on everything. It's unfortunate. And it is, I'm an angry neighbor as well. And again, I brought this to the council twice, and I'm like, this should not be in a residential neighborhood. And if the gentleman told me, well, I asked him, I said, if you wanted all of this space and you wanted to do all of these things with all these various hobbies you have, why are you living in the neighborhood? Because my wife and I like Marion. That's what he said. Well, we all like Marion too, and we'd kind of like to keep it a residential neighborhood.
So you're in favor of this ordinance?
I'm in favor of making the ordinance tougher, because I don't want anything even close to what he has. I'm a divorced 58-year-old woman. I'm not starting over, you know what I'm saying? It's like I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have anything. Everything I have was in my home. And my property value is down. I mean, I don't know anyone that wants to live next door to that. If you wanted to live to a commercial structure, you would have bought a property in town. You wouldn't have bought a quiet neighborhood. And I realize there's nothing to be done at this point about this particular piece of property, but for God's sakes, let's stop it from happening somewhere else. And this thing is like 45 feet high. I have two-story houses. It's bigger than a two-story house. And this gentleman lives in a ranch. It's not right. It wasn't right when it was allowed to be built, and I don't feel it's right now. But again, we can't unbuild it, but let's stop it from being built somewhere else, because there is more property around there. And it's like apparently you can do whatever you want. A fire engine. It is untenable. Anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate you listening.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for your comments. Please fill out the card if you would. Anyone else to address the council on this issue? Sir? Yes.
My name is Robert Buckley. I live at 2730 Heatherview Circle in Marion, and a lot of these folks are my neighbors. And I was here last December expressing our concern about what had happened. Unfortunately, that's what happened. And I know a lot of us are very concerned that it might happen again. So I'm very happy to see that progress has been made on passing an ordinance, and I appreciate that. My consideration is I really haven't had a chance to look at these figures showing the changes, and I'd like time to go over those in my own mind. It's obviously a lot of the things that are our major concerns, which are now up. I don't know what can be done about them, if anything, but the color, matching the residence, that would be a very important thing. So I think that's a wonderful thing. The height not exceeding the height of the house that it's attached to. Some of these size things, I have a hard time grasping 900 square feet of space, but I have a general feeling that most of the concerns that we have been addressed by your planning and zoning committee. Is there another meeting going to be going on before these final figures are accepted as presented?
This is if it gets approved tonight, that would be the initial consideration for that ordinance as it's written.
Okay.
And then so we'd have 2 more votes on it.
Okay.
So between now and the next time we vote on it, you could contact the staff, right, and have input or you can address the council at the next meeting.
Okay.
But there are 2 more readings of this ordinance before it becomes final.
All right. Well, overall, I applaud what's been done, and I think it's been wonderful, and it may be just fine the way it is. I just need to look at these figures a little closer to make sure. I mean, some of these things still kind of surprise me at the size, but now I'm not sure what exact what zone I am in.
That R2.
Would be R2.
Pardon me?
I'm fairly certain that it's R2.
Yeah.
Single family.
R2.
R2.
Yep.
Okay, so there again, I'm not exactly sure what that means, so I'll have to go back and look it up.
Well, Tom could give you a brief.
Yeah, it's single family residential.
Okay.
So very limited district.
And all that property adjacent to Anderson's building, that the old Dostal Farm, is that all R2?
Well, it's zoned A1, which is the rural restricted district I described earlier in the zoning. It's kind of a holding zone. It allows for a single family home. It's got larger setbacks than a residential area, but it's generally associated with larger tract of ground, which means you can.
I don't think he's talking about Mr. Anderson's parcel. He's talking about the neighborhood next to it, right?
Yeah.
It's all R2 around it.
Yeah.
I can't remember. There's another 1.5 acres or 2 acres in there. 3 acres.
More than that, sir. It's like 4 or 5 acres of ground. It's A1.
Okay.
Oh, sure. There's two parcels that are. I'm not sure if that's Anderson's, and then I don't know if I'd have to see a little closer, but.
So if there is still some A1 in the neighborhood there, this would restrict what can happen on that, so that the same thing can't happen on that.
Correct. You'd be able to build the 200%, so 1,800 square foot.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understood that. The ordinances, these figures here, that would apply to that land?
Correct.
Even though it's not, it's A1?
Correct.
Even though it's A1, this ordinance would apply to the entire city, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever zoning district.
But there would be a larger building could be built there, 200% of the gross floor area of the principal residential structure.
Yep.
So if it's 1,000 square foot home, they could do a 2,000 square foot garage.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
But did you say that?
As long as they meet all those other rules.
Yeah. So the design exceptions or
color
considerations would be required.
No, that was just the.
But
that's standard. That's not meeting separate considerations for A1.
Thank you.
We'll let Dave answer it.
Yeah, the A1, it's zoned A1 today. What we're going to do is we're going to do the zoning map update and get rid of all these little A1 parcels that exist. These are the old farmsteads before development.
Whatever is existing as A1 in the city right now would no longer exist. It'd be
only the true agricultural land will be
not
A1.
being farmed.
All the
it will
home,
not be
if it's not being
A1.
farmed, it's the home, and there's little parcels here and there. Those are all going to be zoned appropriate to the current use.
How soon is that going to happen?
Well, we've got the zoning ordinance rolling through right now, and then we have to, once we get that done, all the new land use is done, we have to roll right into the map. The map's probably about 75% done right now. So if we can get the districts approved, and we transition to the map, and the map's, like I said, 3/4 done already.
So soon?
The map's 3/4 done right now. So I'll let Tom.
This year?
I'll let Tom commit to that.
Well, if we started today, we wouldn't get it done this year because of the ordinance requirements. But over the next year, we're trying to take down the zoning in different quadrants of the city. We haven't decided if we want to do it on a quarter basis or if we want to do it by ward. But that's a little bit further down the road.
So it's coming. But the thing is that if somebody came in tomorrow and on this ag land, he could do 200. If this is approved, he could do 200 or 100% of the or 200% of the principal house. With the new ordinance coming in place, he could go big, but he's going to have to, he'd have to get it designed. The ag zoning does not require the design standards. That's the intent of the ag is to allow.
Exactly.
The intent of the ordinance is to allow somebody like Kurt Gill to build a machine shed so he can store his tractor and his equipment in there. It's not for these districts, and that's the correction that needs to happen with the map.
Right.
So.
Okay.
So we're solving half the problem possibly right away by this, but then with all of the ags we still have to get right. Yeah. And there's no way to just fast track that outside of the larger scope of what's taking.
I'd be interested in that. If there's something to
close this loophole.
The zoning map's it really needs to be done on I hate to go in and just nitpick lots on the zoning map. It's a very time consuming, very confusing process, and I think it's going to be taking it by quarter, taking it by
right,
wards.
but then,
is really the
you know,
way to
we're
go.
sitting there with this loophole where,
It's a loophole for maybe a dozen residential lots in town. That's what this loophole is.
I mean,
right
could
now.
we...
Mayor, if
could
I
we-
may, we're kind of getting outside of
Yeah,
the
you're
scope
right.
of the hearing. We're still in the hearing, so
Yeah,
this
so,
might
okay.
be more appropriate under the ordinance
Did I get-
discussion.
So I was back there. I hope I got the question.
I think we got the question answered.
Well, the question was, sorry, 200% on A1, but they don't have to meet any exceptions.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Anyone else to address the council on this issue? Sir?
Are we still in the full favor?
All right, we got this problem. Now, he has a 30-foot, at least a 30-foot long trailer, which he puts his cars in and hauls to the racetracks. He has two low flatbed trailers, two of them, not one, two, that sit out. Now, is that right in a residential neighborhood?
I think that's a separate issue that we can have Dave talk to you about. That's like, right, a nuisance issue, or? So Dave can talk to you about that maybe after the meeting.
Well, I
Would you
mean,
mind?
is it permitted or not?
Well, but right now, we're talking about the rezoning, or I'm sorry, about adopting this ordinance for accessory structures. We're not talking about what's permitted in terms of trailers sitting in driveways or sitting in the yard. I'm sorry, but we will address that with you if we can right after the meeting. Would that be okay?
All right.
All right. Anyone else to speak in favor of this ordinance? In favor?
No,
Yes.
I'm not so sure. I'm totally confused.
Okay, please
My
state your
name
name.
is Lois Buckley, and I live on 2730 Heatherview Circle in Marion.
Yes.
And I can see this obnoxious structure out my bedroom window. Now, that isn't a problem, as much of a problem for me as it is for these good people here, who it's their backyard, a 45-foot tall building, which they get no sun. It's so close to their property, I can't even believe it. And it's bright red. So how does that fit into colors in the neighborhood, the other houses in the neighborhood?
Right,
How'd
so-
that ever be allowed to happen?
Well, at the time, there wasn't this ordinance that we're trying to adopt here.
Okay.
Um,
So what I'm concerned about, another thing I'm concerned about, besides feeling empathy for these lovely people, is we back up to the, whatever it is, 3 or 4 acre land that could be a problem, and you say something to the fact that they can have large barns there, and here we are, this is our backyard. And I don't think Mike has any plans on moving, but who knows? You know, and he could sell to somebody that wants to put up lots of buildings. And again, the rules seem to have stated that it has to be in accordance with other houses in the neighborhood. Well, we don't have any bright red 45-foot house in our neighborhood. So how'd that happen? And does he have to paint it? He should have to paint that thing.
Everything we're talking about tonight, though, is the change. So what was done before tonight, there's nothing, to my knowledge, that can be done to make him do anything to correct it to what you're talking about.
So as we go in the future, if the property behind us gets sold and somebody decides to buy that whole thing, they can put up structures that sound bigger than what I thought they could. I mean, it used to be 900 feet that you should have for a garage, but it appears to me like you're saying it can be a lot more than that.
Under the current zoning, if it's agricultural zoning, but what the staff is working on is to get rid of that zoning classification for lots that are obviously not being used for agricultural purposes in the city. So they will not be zoned agricultural anymore. And so the stricter rules will apply to those properties. Does that make sense? So, yeah.
Okay. I trust that you do what's right.
Thank you.
Can I make a
Yeah,
comment?
go ahead.
I think a concern I'm hearing is, so in the area where we're talking about this nice red building, that just east of that lot, there is some, an area also zoned A1. Is that correct, Tom? So, just east of there, the person that owns that could put up the same building today. Is that correct?
Correct.
even with this new ordinance we're talking about, until we get those rezonings changed, even with this new ordinance, that person could still do that same building today.
Correct, in the A1, and the A1 district is the issue. It's not the residential zoning it's the fact that the property is zoned rural restricted.
Change this. Yeah. Okay, I just want to make sure we all have that understanding, because I think that's important. Even if there's maybe only a dozen lots, there's still the possibility that building could be duplicated on one of those lots until all of your work is done down the road.
There's multiple buildings on that property currently.
Right.
I mean,
in different states of disrepair.
Yes,
absolutely.
We understand that.
Yes. And he's a wonderful person, the person that owns that land, very nice person. But I'm concerned, as probably any one of you would be if it were your property. Yeah. But thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for being here and for sharing your comments. Anyone else to address the council? We're still, I think, on the people in favor of the ordinance. Okay, anyone who is opposed to the ordinance, please come forward. Okay, everyone who's wanted to address this issue has had their chance. Anyone else? Okay, I think there's no one else to address the council, so we will close the public hearing.
Your Honor, I'll be reading number 5. This will be making a motion to approve ordinance number 18-25, approving the revision of Chapter 176, Marion zoning ordinance, for approval of an amendment to Chapter 176.32 of the Marion Code of Ordinances regarding accessory structure size. This will be initial consideration.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 18-25, approving the revision of Chapter 176 of the Marion Code of Ordinances, Marion zoning ordinance, for approval of an amendment to Chapter 176.32 of the Code of Ordinances regarding accessory structure size. Initial consideration. Okay, now discussion.
Yeah, my discussion on this is that we need to consider amending the wording in this so that some of the exceptions as outlined here also apply to the current A1 lots.
Okay. I agree. If the land is obviously, I understand where if there's, a farm that is brought into the city and annexed, they should be able to continue to have those, the ability to build a shed or whatever it is. But if you're obviously in the city and it's not being used for agricultural purposes, you shouldn't be able to get around or, have different rules apply by this technicality because we haven't changed the zoning to something that's more appropriate for an in-city, a lot within the city limits. I just think that the rules should apply to everybody, regardless of your zoning, if you're clearly a city lot within the city limits.
So, but I was just going to say, the way I read it, that it is other than the 200%. So if you're in the A1, you can do the 200% of your principal residence. So an acre, 2-acre lot could do a bigger garage. But if you want to go above, like the height and that type of stuff, you still have to stay within that. You can't do the height above the current building. You still have to stay.
But if he stays within the 200, if you're A1 and you stay within the 200% clause, that person can do anything he wants. He can build it 50 foot high. He can put it any color he wants. The exceptions down below, as I understand it, Dave and Tom, only apply in A1 if he goes above the 200%.
Dave, if you could come up so you can answer these questions, that'd be great. Thank you. I think this is pretty important. We need to be clear on this.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
So the question is, the exceptions.
Okay.
How do they apply to buildings on A1 under this ordinance, whether you are staying within the 200% clause or when you go above it?
When you want to go above it.
So when you go above it, the exceptions apply.
Yes, sir.
But if you're building out a building on an A1 lot,
Yep.
and I stay within the 200% clause,
Yes.
do any of those exceptions apply?
No.
I see what you're saying now.
Yes.
I was
So I can
confused
build
on
that same red building that we're all talking about
It's A1.
today
Yep.
under this ordinance until the rezoning is completed. So,
That's correct?
yes.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So I think that's a whole
So-
separate entity there then. So if you're going to be building, if someone wants to build a garage that's within the 900 square feet or the 200%, they can go high if they want. So I think that needs to be a total separate entity where structures can't be, double the height of your house. That's a whole, I think that's outside of this right now though, isn't it?
No, didn't we cover, I thought it couldn't be higher than your house.
Anything less than 200% or anything smaller than 900 square feet or smaller, I can build it 50 feet tall and paint it pink and purple polka dots.
Right.
I can do whatever I want within the building code and meeting the setbacks. No restrictions.
Right.
If it's above the 200% in the A1 district, or you want to go above 900 square feet, then you have to meet those conditions, all four of them. If you don't meet one of those, you don't get a build over 900 square feet. But again, anything less than 200% or 900 square feet, sky's the limit. Whatever you can design, whatever paint color you want to go buy, you can do anything you want.
You want to
And
get
that's
more in
and that's
depth
and that's
than
and
limited.
Just on the
that's-
A1.
Right.
Just
Because
on the
It's going
A1.
to take a while.
But then how does that
That's going to
affect,
change.
well, how does that affect real A1, real A1 uses? So, there's got to be a different fix than, you know what I'm saying? You got to keep that in there for a farm that gets brought in.
We have thousands of acres in the city limit that are, I shouldn't say thousands. We have probably over 1,000 acres that are actively farmed properties. Now, most of these are, they bring in, most of these aren't farms per se, but they are still farm properties. And there's nothing saying that somebody couldn't want to build a big Morton building to run his operation.
Is there a way to require,
Proof?
to require them to bring it through city council? Because the way that happened was that it was perfectly legal, took out a building permit and built the thing. So,
Well, can I
I don't know.
Can I interject and
Yeah.
just provide some? We've heard a lot of comments. I think some of the issues we can kind of maybe try and simplify and bring it back as what I'm hearing is there's concern about the A1 district and accessory structures and it. At the same time, I'm also understanding that we want to provide some limitation based on the illustration that Davis showed that the R2 districts and the residential districts, we're allowing too large of structures as well. So maybe this limitation is such that, but it's the A1 district that we're concerned with. I would say that there is some concern that if you have some of these outskirt areas that are annexed, and when we talk to people that are going to be annexed, maybe they run a farm, they're going to have some concerns if they're going to be limited on annexing if they can't continue to farm, and maybe this is a part of that issue. So I think the critical question is what are we going to do in the A1 districts relative to accessory structures? But something that council has the power to do that traditionally has not been done in Marion is the council can rezone property. The reason that's A1 is because when it was annexed, it was A1. Everybody else developed around it.
And it was on the edge of town, and it
On
was
the edge of
brought in
town,
as an
so
A1.
it's what's happened is it's just they have never asked for the property to be rezoned. Well, the property around it has all been rezoned for residential development.
Right.
So the question would come to the council if there's a desire to proceed with the rezoning of that property, maybe against the will of the property owner. And then all of a sudden they're under the rules of the residential district. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan that be single-family residential. So that is an option, and maybe just kind of dwell on that and let us kind of maybe bring back some clarity on the ordinance and give some recommendations and maybe outline a few options instead of...
We could keep the public hearing open for another meeting is what you're suggesting?
We've already closed it.
Oh, we already closed it. Oh, sorry.
Right? We've already closed
Yes, we have.
We've closed the public hearing.
Yeah.
But we don't have to vote on this tonight.
Yeah.
And
I do want to point out, I want to take my time and do an ordinance right. I don't want to have to come back and
We
do
do
this
too.
again. But I've had, and Gary can probably confirm, I've had maybe 5 large garages come in the last month because I've had guys call me every month, say, hey, is this on the, we're going to see more of the, I mean, there will be an absolute rush on these garages. I've got 5 already this month, probably.
well, that's
So
my
the-
concern.
Right.
You
The
know?
longer we take, I guarantee you, the more big structures we're going to see. Because there will be, but I want to do this right. I don't want to do something and have to keep it.
But in the
changing it
meantime,
either.
can we put a moratorium or something on
We
or,
council
or,
can.
or require them to come through council or something? I mean, you shouldn't be able to.
They're following the.
I understand.
They're absolutely they're following all the rules.
We're looking for options on how to prevent what we've been talking about.
Let Tom and I, if we can come back next meeting, we can try to generate some interest, generate
Okay.
some ideas, and present an option that can address I'll call it the residential A1 component to it. I don't think we're concerned about the
Yes,
ag component.
correct.
We're concerned about the residential component of it, of an agricultural district.
Can we, just for clarification too, before you step away from the podium, the photographs that you showed us though, were those put on secondary lots, or have those lots been rezoned and turned into one?
No,
Because I'm a little confused. The photographs were showing garages and structures on separate properties.
They had bought the adjacent lot, and then they're combined, but the line still shows as separate lots, but they are one lot. So somebody bought the lot next to them, built a garage.
Perfect.
Almost
So-
all of them, not all of them, but some of them.
Right, and so part of the language talks about, obviously, the structure being behind the garage. How are we addressing those when they do buy the adjacent property to the side? It's not behind the,
Well,
it's not behind the
does not-
primary.
It does not force it behind, but it does force the front yard setback, and it does limit the
Right.
garage doors to 3. So you might have a big garage behind.
So they just have to
Three-
follow the guidelines as to another structure, period, almost like a primary residence, but it's not, I thought I read somewhere, maybe it was in another section here, about being behind.
We always encourage behind, but
Right.
But again, when they buy that separate lot, or additional lot, it's really
Right,
hard.
okay, and I just want to clarify that.
It does
Thank
not.
you.
It
'Cause
does not address that. This does
Good
not address
question.
that situation.
No, thank you, and the photographs I see, I want to make sure I was clear in my head as well, too, what we were seeing, so,
Yes.
thank you.
I think I got my
Well-
marching orders to address
Gonna
it.
make a motion to do.
And when people come in with those, just encourage
yeah.
them to be mindful of their neighbors.
I still want to still bring up that I'm not for restricting the size. I'm for not restricting the size, but they have to be within the current setbacks. I don't think you should move that setback to 25 feet from the rear property. No one's ever going to be able to build a garage, ever get approved in some of the smaller neighborhoods. Which
That's only if they're over 900
exactly,
square feet.
and like I said Tuesday, right next door to me wouldn't have been approved, and there's nothing
sure.
wrong with it, in my mind. But I am for, if height, I am for color, style, design, pole buildings, things like that. What you're getting into too a little bit, when you were talking about, someone right now in A1 could go in and build tall, pink with purple polka dots. Anyone can do that right now if they're under 900. So maybe we need to extend this even more, where if you're building a garage that's 24 by 24, you have to build it consistent to your property, and you can't make it pink with purple polka dots. Because you're against that, obviously,
I'm against it.
but it's allowed, and it will still be allowed. It'll still be allowed on a smaller structure even if we pass this.
And that's not an uncommon ordinance. It's just not in this area, but it's not uncommon for their ordinances to be in place that say your accessory structure can't be taller than your building. Your accessory structure has to be smaller than the primary structure. I mean, there's all kinds of,
Coggan has that, a little small town.
Does it really?
Can't be taller than your.
Before we
current
also
property.
move on, I'd like to bring up the point that, we have these as R1s around there, or R1s or R2s. At some point, they got to come in anyway. So why do we not go after these A1s and get them zoned in like they should be? They are now in the city limits. They're now surrounded. In my industry, we look at agriculture. You have to have $2,000 of annual earned income off of the land to be agriculture by the state of Iowa. So that it's raising chickens, cows, cattle, selling milk, growing crops, cash crops. If those aren't being done, in my mind, they're not agriculture. So we're allowing them to work and look like agriculture and take those benefits because we haven't, and I think that's something that we need to address. I totally agree as we're stretching our limits to the outer levels, but we're talking about agricultural land that is actively being either cash rented out or cash cropped, or those are working farms yet. So as we're moving in some of those areas, but I would like to see us address these A1s that are being landlocked in, so to speak. I think it's time that we address some of those issues.
I think one other aspect is it'd be incumbent upon the staff to have the foresight, and I know it's challenging and difficult, to have the foresight to keep us out of this situation, so that as we continue to grow and expand, you start seeing some of these peripheral and some of these piecemeal things, that are hanging out there. Let's get them cleaned up ahead of time, and we're willing to deal with it. I don't think that we're going to shuck that, but I think we need to deal with it
There's very few homes that are
as quickly as we
There's
can.
very few homes that are zoned A1 since 2000. Most of these are old farmhouses back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s.
So you're saying they're all now rushing in, they want to build a building?
I think we've had 5 in the last month and a half.
But not A1.
Not in A1, but just in people that want to do over 900 square feet on some general. they're big lots.
I think what Randy said is very accurate. That if you're clearly not actively farming your property, you shouldn't have the benefits that are available to ag land. That your neighbors don't have those benefits. You should have the same rules as everybody else, unless it's being actively farmed. I mean, to me that just makes sense. So, I'd like to see us move in that direction. So,
Your Honor, would you like me to make a motion to amend my previous motion?
Or do we
Tabling it.
Table it?
Or do we table it
I'd like to table it.
to allow them to revise it?
Is there still discussion?
Yeah, we're still in discussion,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But unless somebody, he's free to
No, I'm
move the
just-
table, but if you'd like to discuss first, go ahead.
Yeah, well, not that in particular. I just didn't want to move on from it. I just wanted to thank the people that came, Robert and Lois and Jim and Susan, because rarely do people come when they're in favor of something that we're going to do. So it's great to hear from the community. Mr. Buckley, I know that you submitted a letter. That was the first time this got on my radar, and so it's super helpful for us to be informed based on what you guys are going through. We obviously can't go back and change what was done, but to correct it now to try to prevent this from happening in the future is, I think, exactly what we're all trying to get at. So thanks for being here tonight and sharing that with us. It's helpful.
Okay, thank you. Other discussion before we, okay. Did you have a motion?
I do. I will make a motion to table item number 5, ordinance number 18-25.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to table ordinance 18-25. Discussion on the motion to table.
So we're basically giving staff more time to look at the feedback we came up with tonight, and is it realistic to think we are going to do something about the A1 as well in what you come back with?
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Okay, other discussion? All right, we'll vote. All of those in favor of tabling ordinance number 18-25, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Thank you. Okay, good discussion. Thank you to people who came to comment.
Yeah, I think so, because I'm a little confused if these are all in the same section.
Mr. Brandt, are you number 6 now? Or?
Sure. Make a motion to approve ordinance number 18-20, approving the revision of chapter 176.06, Rules and Definitions of Marion Code of Ordinance, second consideration.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 18-20. This is the second consideration, approving the revision of chapter 176.06, Rules and Definition of the Marion Code of Ordinances. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no.
He's in a hurry, apparently.
Okay, the motion is approved. Mr. Jensen.
Next, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 18-21, approving the revision of Chapter 176.33, nonconforming uses, buildings, and structures of the Marion Code of Ordinances, and this is the second consideration.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to approve the second consideration of ordinance 18-21, which is approving the revision of Chapter 176.33 of the Code of Ordinances, nonconforming uses, buildings, and structures. Discussion.
I think just for the benefit of the people here who weren't at the previous meeting where we had the initial consideration, so they're not, so that they understand better what we're approving, because it sounds very similar to what we tabled.
Yes.
Tom, could you just highlight what the second consideration is to kind of assuage any concerns they might have related to their property and structures?
So the second consideration is just the reading of the ordinance, so we can still accept comments relative to it, or you want me to go through the non-conforming?
No, I just want you to distinguish how what they came in to talk about was accessory structures, and how this, these aren't accessory structures, they're more, I think that they're things that wouldn't be of concern to them. Like if you could point out some of the issues in that, yeah, like non-conforming.
So what a non-conforming use, structure, or lot would be let's take a use, maybe there's a rezoning that occurs and there's a pre-existing use there. Maybe it goes from commercial to residential, which is not a great example, but if you're running a business and it gets zoned residential, you can continue to run your commercial business in that residential district for a period of time. However, if it goes away for a period of time, then you can't reestablish that use in the district, and it loses its non-conforming status. So you're a non-conforming use in a zoning district, and you can continue for a period of time, but once it goes away, you're done. So, and I believe it's a 6-month period of time. So, for instance, in 7th Avenue, where we're trying to see redevelopment occur, and we've got a plan for that to happen, there are some uses in that district we just don't want to see continue to develop. So when the zoning is changed in that area, they'll become non-conforming uses, and it's likely that they'll be redeveloped. We want to make sure that the redevelopment that occurs is consistent with the long-range plans and the new zoning, opposed to what's been going on for years and years. So,
thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving ordinance number 18-21, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Okay, the motion is approved.
Your Honor, I move that we approve ordinance number 18-22, approving the revision of Chapter 176.04, establishment of districts and map, and the creation of Chapter 176.51, new zoning district classification, second consideration.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 18-22, approving the revision of Chapter 176.04, establishing districts and maps, and the creation of Chapter 176.51, the new zoning district classifications. This is the second consideration of that ordinance. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Okay, and the motion is approved. Sir?
Make a motion to approve Resolution 27142, approving an application to the Iowa Department of Transportation for a federal recreational trail program for the Marion Independent School District Safe Routes to School Trail.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27142, approving an application to the Iowa Department of Transportation for Federal Recreational Trails Program for the Marion Independent School District Safe Routes to School Trail. And this, if we were to be awarded the full amount we're seeking, would help us complete the entire thing all at once. That would be amazing.
Excellent.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of resolution number 27142, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion's approved. So I think items G, 1, 2, and 3 have been pulled off of the agenda by staff. At this time, we have time for public comments on anything that wasn't on the agenda or part of the public hearings. Is there anyone here to address the council on any item of concern to you? Sir, welcome back.
Welcome back. Yes, sir. I guess I got a lot of complaints. I moved here 5 years ago from Pennsylvania this month. I'm still waiting for somebody to fix 7th Avenue. The road work around here, somebody's got the priorities mixed up. Because it seems like they put concrete where there's not going to be any traffic for a while. I understand 6th Street can't go through because of a problem with the one owner won't sell the ground. Is this correct?
I'll ask the engineering department or planning department.
So we're continuing with the Central Corridor project. There's different phases of that. Obviously, under construction is the phase just east of 13th Street where the roundabout's being constructed. We're hoping to finish that this fall, and then we would move to the next piece and hopefully be able to finish and connect the 6th Avenue to the roundabout next year, probably in the fall. We are continuing with right-of-way acquisition in the area. We've got probably half of the property to complete the project, but we do have a few property owners that are contesting some of the acquisitions, so we just are continuing to work through the process. The council's well aware of the fact that we've used condemnation as we've moved through here. This has been a priority of the city, and we have the ability to move forward using condemnation, and I think we've got the full backing of the council to do that. If we waited till we had all of the property in hand, we would not be able to proceed as diligently. We need to make that connection, so you're seeing the phasing done just as we've always planned. There's been no detour from that. So while there are some property owners that are not necessarily supportive of the project and are maybe pushing back on some of the acquisitions, we continue to negotiate with them and work through the remedies. Condemnation is a product of last resort. We don't like to use it. We do use the process, and it's been a lot of folks that have come in when we use condemnation as a process have not been very excited about it at the beginning, but in the end, we've had a lot of positives come out of it.
So was your question about 7th Avenue?
Well, don't you think the main street of the city should be better in shape than what it is?
Sure. We do have a plan.
Well, we haven't done a damn thing for 5 years.
We do have a plan to rebuild 7th Avenue, but
imagine
6th
you do,
Avenue
sir,
has to be
but
done
when's that
first
come
so that
about?
people have a way to get through town. So we need to have 6th Avenue finished. That's how it's been explained to me, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But 6th Avenue has to be completed so that people have a way to get through the downtown to the other side before we can work on rebuilding 7th Avenue. But there is a plan to rebuild 7th Avenue. And
Well,
you're
I'd
correct,
like to
it's very old and it
I'd
needs
like to
needs
see
help.
29th, or not 29th, 35th Street. Somebody do something there, because there's some rough areas on that road that should certainly be attended to.
On 35th Street?
Yes, 35th Street.
Which part?
I'm going to say above McGowan Avenue, between McGowan and 28th or 29th.
Okay.
There are some areas there that's pretty rough. And somebody ought to be putting some attention to it. And that's not the only one, but that's the one I'm concerned about because I travel it every day.
Right. Well, we have a lot of streets, and we have a regular program of attending to the problems with the streets. That there's only so much money that can be spent every year on. We spend about $1 million on existing streets every year, resurfacing, and the asphalt program. And so they look at the ones that are in most need, and then they tend to those every year. And so there's a list of streets every year that gets paid attention to. So.
I understand that. I mean, I'm not going to get into it because, I mean, somebody likes those roundabouts. I'm not particularly fond of them, but they sure a lot of money.
I'd love to have a cup of coffee with you sometime, and we'll talk about that. All right. Anyone else to address the council? Okay. On to council discussion time. Mr. Sternad.
With Mr. Draper gone, can I take his 20 minutes? Couple things just coming up here. Cop on a Rooftop. That's coming up Friday at Dunkin' Donuts. Please attend that if you can. That's going to be raising money to support Special Olympics. That's always a fun event every year. So if you happen to be in the area, please come out and support that. I want to give kudos out to the Marion Police Department for an overwhelming turnout for the human trafficking information forum that I understand was moved 2 or 3 different times because the size and number of people that were coming out for that. I regret I was out of state, so I wasn't able to attend that. But I've heard a lot from the general public that attended it. It was great. I hope a lot was learned from that. Hopefully we can see some follow-up that in the future. It's a huge topic. There's a lot of concerned citizens, especially with our children and our elderly. So that's something that I was very excited to get some feedback on. I will be attending the Iowa League of Cities Conference. That's going to be hosted in Council Bluffs next week. I'm super excited about going to that. That's an opportunity for us to attend and become more educated, learn about our city's processes, our state's processes. So I will be attending, I believe that's a 2.5-day seminar out there. So I'm really looking forward to that. Hopefully I can bring some information back and share with some people. So with that, I also want to thank all the departments and staff. Through our abundance of rain, I know there's been some extra efforts going on out there to place pumps, and everybody's been doing their due diligence to prepare our city. And hopefully with the rain out of the forecast now for the next few days, we'll start to see those waters recede. I know we are in the Parks Department already. It looks like it's starting to dry out over there just a little bit. So anyway, thank you very much.
Will.
Just wish Councilman Draper a speedy recovery. That's all.
Yeah, I would like to encourage everyone to exercise their right to vote on September 11th. That's next Tuesday. Participate in the decision to allow the Linn-Mar School District to build some new infrastructure. There will also be satellite voting this Friday night at the football game. That is home. Go Lions. And it's just an important process. I think you should vote every time you get the chance to do so, become informed on what it is, and have your say. And then secondly, preseason is over. Patriots versus Texans on Sunday. Go Patriots. All right?
I'm surprised that came out.
Get ready for it. You got a whole good season.
Good luck. Good luck. One thing I think was a tremendous event that the Marion Police have done over the last 4 months, and that was to contact the businesses in our community. We've had a number of discussions back when I was on the Marion Chamber Board, Medco boards. We always ask ourselves, how many businesses do we have in Marion? I'm not sure anybody has an accurate count, but our Marion Police contacted, was it 933? Is that right?
Over 900.
I believe it was 935.
935?
And because of the new media release, we are now getting some new entries over the internet webpage.
Great.
The Marion's webpage of new businesses that we did miss. There's so many out there. Yes, sir.
They're working in those oversized garages. I'm
Yeah.
just kidding.
So this entire effort is so positive because it gives a contact from our police department to our businesses. And I used to run a Marion business, and I know how important that is so that they've got the correct contact information so that if something is happening in that business during after hours, and I had a few phone calls at 2 or 3 in the morning saying you need to come out here because you have an unlocked door. So for them having that correct information and just making the positive contact, I think is huge. But I also know, again, kudos out to our streets department and parks for everything you've been dealing with for the rain over the last few weeks.
Okay, from my part, I also want to commend the police department and all the citizens who attended also, because it takes both sides. You know, we can provide the information to have engaged citizens. And actually the human trafficking presentation, I think, was precipitated by citizen requests that people wanted more information. They wanted to see information on our website about human trafficking, how they can identify it, how they can take precautions, all those things. And to their credit, the police department responded by putting together this presentation, and I think they expected, a few people to show up, and there were 600 people that showed up. And they did have to move the location several times, very quickly. But it just showed that was a very timely topic and something that's important to the community. And people came, I think, from Dubuque, from other areas to hear it. It was a good presentation. I learned a lot. And I think everybody there really appreciated it. So thank you for that. Next Thursday, Mr. Stern had mentioned the Iowa League of Cities Conference. Marion will be receiving for the second year in a row the All-Star Community Award from the Iowa League of Cities. We're one of 3 cities to be presented with the award for the second year in a row. Marion is being awarded the designation among the large city category. For that award, we're in the large city category. So all the larger cities in Iowa were potentially competing with Marion for this award. And the fact that Marion has won it 2 years in a row, I think speaks a lot for our city, how much we have to be proud of. We're not perfect, but we have so much to be happy about, and it's being noticed across the state and across the nation. This year, in particular, we were receiving the award for the Alley project, the Uptown Artway project, which has really put Marion on a national stage of recognition. And we're just so proud of everything that's going on here, our wonderful staff who work hard every day for the citizens of Marion and give them a great quality of life. It's always an honor to be able to represent the city at things like that and to receive the awards. So glad to know that Randy will be there too with us, and that there are other staff members from the city and Chamber of Commerce going to attend that award ceremony and accept the award. One thing I wanted to mention is that our next regular council meeting on the 20th will not begin at the normal hour of 5:30. It will begin at 4 p.m. So people, please make note of that. The 20th meeting on the 20th will begin at 4 p.m., correct? Okay.
I didn't change mine.
Okay, so that's what I have for my part. For announcements, I want to thank everyone for being here and for participating in the meeting. It really helps us in our positions to hear from citizens and to see the participation and to hear people's positions on things. So we do have a closed session, so we'll need to have a motion to adjourn to closed session.
Don't
we need to do the, oh no.
Yes, go ahead.
I make a motion to adjourn to closed session regarding personnel matters, city manager performance evaluation, as permitted under section 21.5, paragraph 1, subsection I of the state of Iowa. Did I get that right?
Yes. I have reviewed the potential subject matter for the proposed closed session and find the same to be acceptable under Iowa Code Chapter 21.5, paragraph 1, subsection I.
Okay, so we had the motion made and a second by Councilman Jensen to adjourn to closed session regarding personnel matters. And anything else? Or Lon?
Yeah, I just need to give my formal approval on the record.
Okay, so the city manager has approved our meeting in closed session regarding his performance evaluation.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Jensen?
Yes.
Mayor Abowasley?
Yes.
Ms. Gedalia?
Yes.
Mr. Brandt?
Yes.
Mr. Sternad?
Yes.
Okay, we're adjourned to closed session, and we'll be back into open session after that. Thank you, everyone.